I'd like to share with you the potential underlying cause for an overactive bladder, a leaky bladder, a bladder that can't hold urine, a bladder that causes you to go more frequently, and sometimes even frequent urination at night. So let's go ahead and dissect this problem because there's a lot of confusions about the underlying cause, okay? And of course, the treatments have side effects, but many of the medications that they use for this condition are anticholinergic. Now, what does that mean? It means that they block a certain neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine is kind of like a hormone within the nervous system that affects the pelvic floor, as well as the mechanisms that allow you to contract and relax your bladder. And that whole system collectively is called the autonomic nervous system. So the drugs that they use for leaky bladder really are affecting the autonomic nervous system, which makes sense because one of the root dysfunctions is neurogenic, which means it's coming from the nervous system. The other cause that they talk about is idiopathic. That is a fancy term that means unknown cause, okay? And what we do know about the idiopathic or unknown causes of a leaky bladder is that a major cause for that is, you guessed it, insulin resistance, okay? That's a condition where you also have high amounts of insulin, which then leads to alteration within your autonomic nervous system. So when you have this imbalance or dysfunction within the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic, can affect the muscle called the detrusor muscle. So now the confusing part about this, when you do research on it, they pretty much focus in on estrogen, okay, a loss of estrogen, especially after menopause, because of course, when you go through menopause, your estrogen drops. So you definitely have a hormonal problem that can definitely affect the bladder as well as the vaginal area and many other parts of the body. But the problem is when you give someone with a leaky bladder estrogen, it doesn't seem to solve the problem. It's more of a nerve-related problem within the autonomic nervous system, which can be greatly affected when you have insulin resistance. So this problem gets worse when you age, when you're pregnant, when you have childbirth, especially multiple childbirths, because that's going to affect the muscles that help you contract and relax, because that's going to affect the structure. It's going to stretch out the valve that controls the release of urine through your bladder. And then also there's things that aggravate it, like chronic constipation, obesity, problems with chronic coughing and asthma, and of course the usual stuff. People that drink a lot of tea and coffee, these things can all aggravate the condition. Not to mention this condition getting worse when you're under stress, which makes a lot of sense because of how stress influences the autonomic nervous system. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is something that might just solve it without having to even try any herbal remedies or even the Kegel exercises. And that would be addressing this insulin resistance. Insulin resistance dramatically and negatively affects the autonomic nervous system. So a lot of problems connected to that will disappear when you address this insulin resistance. And I'm going to recommend healthy keto and intermittent fasting, and really do it for real, where you're eliminating these refined carbs. You're keeping your carbs under, I would say, 25 grams per day. You're doing the healthy version of the ketogenic diet, as well as doing intermittent fasting. So you're fasting for 18 hours and you have an eating window of 6 hours. So that will help frequent urination, especially in men at night. It's very, very effective for that. And if your problem really is the autonomic nervous system, you're going to greatly affect positively the function of your bladder control. Because, and the reason I'm saying this is because if you jump right to the herbs, the remedy, and you don't fix this foundational eating problem, and you don't fix insulin resistance, the herbs may not nearly have the impact that they should. And you might just kind of chalk it up to, well, another remedy didn't work. Let me go for the medications. The problem is they create side effects. So I would highly recommend starting with the healthy version of the ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting. Okay, that's number one. Number 2, Kegel exercises, okay? Now this will help put more control into your bladder because urination is both involuntary and voluntary. And if you start to do these exercises, you start to put more control into the voluntary part of those muscles. How do you do that? Well, number 1, you ensure that your bladder is empty. You want to lay on your back, maybe on your bed, okay, with your knees up. You want to keep your lower back curved. So you don't want to flatten the curve in your lower back. You can even roll up a towel and put that in your lower back, but that way it rocks your pelvis forward. Then you want to lift and squeeze the pelvic opening, okay? And you're going to do that for a count of 5 seconds, okay? You're going to contract those muscles, and then you're going to relax those muscles for 5 seconds. And you're going to go back and forth for about 10 times, okay? And then just do this 3 times a day, spread out through the day. And these exercises have been done for many years with a very positive effect. As far as the herbal remedies, there's some great data that I found searching for patents using herbal or natural remedies for an overactive bladder. And I'm going to share all this information in the description as well. One of these patents actually has a very hardcore study that was double-blinded, placebo-controlled, and it showed significant improvements. And I did a deep dive on these 3 herbs, and guess what I found? They affect the autonomic nervous system. Surprise. So the first herb is called Creativa nervala stem bark. And another name for this is Varuna. Number 2, horsetail. And number 3, Lindura aggregata. So I'll put these 3 herbs in the description so you can do your research and try to find maybe a product that has all 3. But definitely start with the healthy version of keto with intermittent fasting. And I'm going to put a link down below if you're new to keto. I have just a free download. You can go to my site, just download it, and it'll tell you exactly how to do this. In fact, why don't I just show you a video of how to do it right here? Check it out.